All right, let's head to D.C. now, where today MTA Chief Thomas Pendergast, he is meeting with leaders of Congress to talk about what it might take if, in fact, the Long Island Railroad workers walk off as they're threatening to do in just 11 days, leaving rail riders stranded. Now, Kevin Vesey, he was down in D.C. all today, and he files this report regarding what could happen next, because it doesn't look like Congress is getting into the fight.
Well, the New York congressional delegation made their point loud and clear today that they will not get involved in any talks between the MTA and LIRR unions.
At this point in time, Congress is not an option.
After meeting with MTA Chairman and CEO Thomas Pendergast for about an hour behind closed doors, the New York congressional delegation announced that they would not intervene in stalled talks between the MTA and LIRR unions, even though a strike would have a crippling effect on railroad commuters.
Everyone I've spoken to in Congress says tell them to go to the table. And what I'm saying that if he decides to anticipate what Congress might do is making a big mistake.
Instead, the representatives say they're sending both parties back to the bargaining table where they will stay until a settlement is reached.
We will be demanding that the unions present a counteroffer tomorrow. We are demanding that the MTA be at that meeting and receive that counteroffer. We are demanding that both the MTA and the unions negotiate and get this solved quickly.
Talks were once again derailed after only 4 hours at the negotiating table yesterday. The two sides are set to meet again on Thursday, but if they're going to make any progress, Pendergast says the unions have to agree to pay more for their health care and benefits.
The parties are close. Both parties have to come to the table willing to negotiate. We've moved substantially from day one. We've had 4 different moves. The union hasn't.
There's 9-10 days left, and every moment that's not spent at the negotiating table is a wasted moment. We want everyone at the table, and for anyone to be looking to get a silver bullet from Congress, they'd be making a big mistake.
And yesterday, union officials criticized Pendergast for not personally showing up to negotiate, and it doesn't look like he'll be there tomorrow either. The MTA chairman says he'll only be at the table when both sides are ready to close a deal. In Washington, Kevin Vesey, RFL.
All right, thank you. We've seen strikes before. We saw them in the 90s. There was one in the 80s. You know, family actually reminded me there was one in the 60s too that was really bad. I mean, this isn't like when cops or firefighters strike and they're compelled to go, right? We don't have that here. So this thing could be a mess.
It could be a mess. Referring to what you just said, you had the Taylor law in New York City but even then the transit workers still walked out, in which they're fined, I believe, 3 days pay for every day that they're out. But this is a situation where, frankly, it looks like the union is posturing a little bit, because the only thing that stops, apparently they're stopping the two. They've already agreed to a 17% increase over, I believe, 6 or 7 years.
It seems like it's a decent deal.
It is a decent deal. Here's the problem. The union won't accept that new employees have to pay a little more for health care coverage. Every union is accepting that in this day and age.
Again, here, this thing would start on the 20th, Monday morning, so they got till the Sunday before, not this Sunday, but next Sunday, to actually get a deal done. All right, now to this next one. And for the life of me, I can't understand. This is a new problem, but how, with everybody agreeing, we can't get this thing solved. The new report's out that shows more than $380,000 in bonuses went to directors, top executives at 30 VA hospitals that are now under scrutiny for falsifying documents and delays in patient care. That's bad enough. But the more we're finding out, the delays are even longer than we thought. Now, Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, he's been on the front lines of this. He's been demanding answers, especially after it was first reported that vets in Connecticut, but basically it's the norm everywhere, weren't facing the same delays in care that plagued other hospitals. So they said, terrific. But the numbers show it's actually worse. Medical appointments for Connecticut facilities have tripled when they've gone through all the details here from what they thought. A May audit showed about 1,000 appointments, and just a month later, the number jumped to about 3,000 appointments. This impacted. I spoke with the senator earlier today. You've been really invested in the whole, I don't know what to call it, but the scandal at the VA, and now we get these reports. somehow it goes from bad to worse even under the microscope of Washington. Can you explain how waiting times are actually tripling even after all the questions have been asked here? It seems to be more questions than answers at this point.
Even during the last 2 months, when the VA has been under intense scrutiny and attention, the numbers of cases involving delays beyond 30 days for scheduling appointments has literally tripled, from 998 to 2,727. This tripling of the number of cases involving scheduling delays of more than 30 days is absolutely unacceptable. And I want to know why it has happened. Is it that the original numbers were inaccurate or untruthful, or has there actually been this tripling of delays, which seems incomprehensible and unconscionable? So I've written to the acting secretary of the VA, Sloan Gibson, calling for an explanation as to why this could have happened. Is it the shortage of doctors? Is it the inaccuracy of the numbers? Is it the possible greater accuracy of the numbers provided more recently? We need to know, and the Congress and the people, and most importantly our veterans, deserve to know why this tripling of the numbers of cases delayed more than 30 days for appointments. And I've asked also for site-specific information so we know, whether in New York or Connecticut, at specific sites, what is happening in terms of the causes of these delays, the truthfulness of information, destruction of documents potentially, and other kinds of wrongdoing.
You know, Senator, I'll give you credit. I mean, you've been on this, for a long time now. Why do you have any confidence that even with the change in leadership in the VA, even with the resignations that a lot of people thought were warranted that have happened, why should you or we have any confidence that we're finally going to get transparency? You would think by now they'd be chagrined enough. It takes yet another report. Is it that they don't know, or is it they're learning with the rest of us?
Restoring trust and confidence, and all of us deserve to have it in the VA, but most particularly our veterans, means better information, more accurate and truthful information, which so far has been forthcoming only in dribs and drabs from the VA. That's why I've demanded site-specific information. 2 months ago I asked for it, still not provided. I've asked again in a letter to the acting secretary. I've also called for an explanation for these latest numbers, which show a tripling in Connecticut and a quadrupling in some parts of the country of the number of cases delayed longer than 30 days for appointments. That kind of explanation ought to be forthcoming right away. And the new secretary of the VA ought to be ready for an explanation when he testifies before the Veterans Affairs Committee where I serve. And I'm going to be asking a lot of tough questions about why and how management can be improved, why it hasn't been so far, and how it must be in the future.
Senator Blumenthal, thank you so much for a few minutes. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. When we come back, we're going to look closer to home here. Look at prosecutions over pot. Now, the Brooklyn DA, he's rolling out new rules. How much power, we're going to ask our panelists here, does the DA's office really have basically different borough, different rules? We'll talk about that after this.